Today we're gonna make some yogurt from scratch. So every time I talk about making yogurt from scratch, people think that you need to have a cow to milk in order to make things like this. And so I prefer to use raw milk, but today we're not making it with raw milk. We're gonna make it with just 4 liters of store-bought milk from the grocery store. And all you have to do is source some really good yogurt. You wanna look for just milk, cream, and active bacterial cultures. It can't have any other additives in it. So this one is the Astro brand, and all it has is milk, cream, and active bacterial cultures. And that's what you're looking for because that's what's going to actually culture your yogurt. So basically all yogurt is a manipulation of the dairy proteins to kind of coagulate it into this different formation that we call yogurt. And oftentimes you'll see people that make it on their stove. Well, I'm gonna make it in the crock pot. So I'm gonna show you exactly what you need in order to make this super easy. You don't have to babysit it. The only thing you have to know is how to take the temperature of your milk and make sure that you monitor kind of how it's coming down in temperature and adding in your yogurt, and you're good to go. So like I said, this is it. This is all you need in your crock pot. So we have our whole milk. Just a quick note on this, you wanna make sure you are not using skim milk or even 1 or 2% milk. You want whole milk. The more fat that is going to be in the actual milk, the better your yogurt is ultimately going to turn out. So stick with this one's 3.25%. If you're using raw milk, you can skim the cream off, but maybe just leave a little bit in there so that you have a little bit of extra fat. And then when you go to your grocery store to look for yogurt, again, this is the Astro Original brand, but you wanna make sure this one is 6%. So you can get fat-free yogurt or low-fat yogurt. Do not do that. You wanna get the real, like this is 6% milk fat, and you want it to say milk, cream, and active bacterial cultures. So that's the one that I use, but just make sure that you're looking for the right stuff when you're getting your yogurt. Obviously, after you make your first batch of yogurt, you never have to buy yogurt again to put into it. You can just keep recycling and using the yogurt from the last batch. And then we just have our crock pot. We are literally just gonna pour the milk into this and turn it on. And I'm gonna walk you through the whole process on how we do that. The only other thing that you wanna make sure that you have is a thermometer. I don't know where mine is right now, but just a quick read thermometer because we need to be able to temp our milk before we put our yogurt into it. So we're just basically pouring this entire jug of milk into our crock pot. If you're using raw milk, you wanna measure out about 1 gallon or 4 liters of milk. And so my crock pot just holds enough. And then I'm just putting the cover on. And we're gonna turn it on low. Pull this back a little bit. So we want it on low, and we want it like that for probably 3 hours. Basically, what we're doing here is we are bringing the temperature of the milk, we're scalding the milk, and that starts to manipulate the milk proteins. And so we are scalding it to 180 degrees. Once it comes up to 180 degrees, we want it to come back down again. Basically, it's going to scald the milk, and once it does that, we wanna add in, we've manipulated the proteins in the milk, and we wanna add our culture in. But you can't add your culture in when you have milk that's 180 degrees. It would just kill it because it's way too hot. So we need to bring that back down. But because we've kind of gently manipulated those milk proteins, we don't want it to plummet down. So a lot of times if people are making it on the stove, they'll take their pot off the stove and they'll put it in some ice, and it will kind of slowly bring the temperature back down. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna just essentially unplug your crock pot and leave the cover on, and the temperature will slowly come back down. It takes a little while, but the slower, what I found, the slower you can allow your temperature to drop when you're making yogurt, the better it ultimately turns out in the end. And I don't really know exactly why that is, but it has to do with the proteins in the milk. So once it comes down to about 115 to 120 degrees, we're gonna add in our cultures. That's a perfect temperature to add them back in. Anything warmer than 130, it won't work. It will kill the culture. So 115, 120 is sort of like the sweet spot. Then we're gonna take our yogurt, add it in, whisk it all up, and I'll show you what we do after that. But essentially, once you add your yogurt in and you leave it to sit, it's gonna turn into yogurt, which is just super cool. So right now, all you have to worry about is putting your milk in your crock pot, turning it on low, leaving it for a few hours, temping it after a little while, making sure that you scald the milk all the way up to about 180 degrees, and then unplug your crock pot and slowly let it come back down in temperature to 115 to 120. All right, so this had sat for quite some time, came up to about 178 on the quick read. And now I'm just gonna let it slowly come back down. So I've just unplugged the unit from the wall and we can kind of see what the temperature is. So it's still up to about over 170. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the cover and just place it kind of perpendicular on the top so that air can get to it. I've completely turned off the whole machine and I'm just gonna let it sit here and slowly come down in temperature. So we have our scalded and then cooled milk. So what will happen is you will get like a film on the top of the milk. And so we brought this up to 180, like I said, we brought it back down very slowly. You can peel that right off the top. I actually just mix it right in. It doesn't bother me at all. So what we're gonna do now is we have our 1 cup of our culture and we're gonna put this into our milk. So we're gonna just dump that in and start to whisk it all up. And you want it to kind of go in nice and even. You know, just like sourdough, when you're making sourdough, oops, you want that leaven to kind of be whisked around to evenly distribute throughout so that everything kind of ferments evenly. And that's the same thing with your yogurt. Okay, so you're just going to whisk it. It's going to get a little bit foamy on the top. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna bring that off. So here's the tricky part. So now we don't actually want to cover it completely because we want it to be able to breathe. And if we were to cover this completely, it can't breathe other than through that little hole right there. So what I like to do is I like to turn it and cover about half of it. And then we want to kind of keep this insulated. So yes, our crock pot's quite insulated, but we want it even more insulated. So what I like to do is I go and I get just like a big towel and I wrap it around my crock pot, and then I'm going to cover over top with a towel, like a different towel. So I like to do 2 towels. So I do 1 around the crock pot, 1 over top, and it just kind of like insulates the whole thing. And I'm gonna leave this here probably until tomorrow morning. And when I come back in the morning, usually, so it's like 6 p.m. right now, so like 6 a.m. in the morning when I come back, I will have yogurt. And it's that easy. So for reference, this is what it looks like. Basically, I put a clean dish towel over top of the pot. It's not touching the milk or anything. And then I hold it down with the cover. And then this allows it to breathe. And then I wrap just like a towel around the outside of it. And obviously that doesn't touch the milk either. And then it sits. And basically this is just allowing air to access the milk. And it's going to kind of like coagulate and ferment overnight and give us yogurt. So once we have the yogurt, at that point, we're going to, you can eat it at that point. So you can either put it in a container, pop it into the fridge. You're gonna have quite a bit of yogurt, but you can put it in the fridge and it will firm up even further for you. Or what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna show you, is we're going to strain this through like a cheesecloth. So we're gonna strain it down even further, and that's gonna help really thicken up your yogurt. And for us, where there's only 4 of us in our house, we don't need a lot of yogurt. So what I'll often do is strain the whole thing down and see what I have. And usually I end up with like a decent sized container of Greek yogurt that we can flavor and have for our family throughout the week. So this has been sitting for the whole night. You can see that it is definitely turned into like a beautiful yogurt. So what I like to do at this point is I'm gonna just kind of hold back about a cup. If I was to put this in the fridge right now, this is gonna thicken up even more because obviously it's still at room temperature, which is completely safe. You don't have to worry about that. So I just like to hold back yogurt. And then this is what I'm going to use to make my next batch. So I'm just gonna put a cover on that, put that in the fridge, and it will sit there. And as soon as I run out of yogurt, I'll use this just with some milk, same thing, and I will make a whole other brand new batch of yogurt. Okay, so again, we can put this just in a container and it can go in the fridge. This is what, you know, your regular yogurt consistency would be like if you were going to go buy it at a store. So what we want to do now is, if we want, we don't need that much yogurt for us personally. So what we can do is, now I have a large pot and a strainer, just like a really fine mesh strainer. You want a big one that can fit over your whole pot. And then I have a cheesecloth that goes on top. If you don't have a large mesh strainer, you can just get one of these cheesecloths. I recommend the silicone style cheesecloth. I don't like using the cloth cheesecloth because sometimes you can get like little particles of cloth in your yogurt, and that's kind of gross. So basically what we're doing is we're just gonna scoop as much yogurt that will fit in this area, and it's not gonna fit all of it, so that's fine. We'll just stick the cover back on the crock pot here, and it can sit out. Again, it's perfectly safe to sit out at room temperature. It's not gonna hurt it. So we're going to just scoop as much in here. What's gonna happen is this will start to strain, and I will show you that process because it's not gonna do it right away, but what will end up happening is it will start to drip all of the way out of the yogurt and down into the pot. It will start to get really, really thick, like a Greek yogurt. Or you can even keep straining it down further and further to make like a cream cheese or like a boursin style consistency. In the summer months when we make yogurt, I like to make sure that it's covered, just because you never know if there's anything in the kitchen that could kind of get into it. So I like to put a cover on top, and you can do that any time of the year. So putting a cover on top doesn't hurt it at all. We've finished fermenting, we finished making the yogurt. All we're doing now is straining the yogurt. So we're just gonna put this cover right on top, and I'm gonna cover up the rest of it in the crock pot, and we're just gonna leave it to sit. And sometimes this takes several hours. As it starts to strain, obviously this will start to go down, and so I can keep adding more yogurt. So if you choose to turn the whole batch into Greek yogurt, this will strain down, it will lower on the sides. You can keep adding in your yogurt until you have the whole batch in there, and you can be finished with your crock pot. So we'll cover that, we'll cover up the crock pot, and we're just gonna let it sit. So as I mentioned before, I am gonna keep adding more in because I want all of ours to be kind of thicker. We're gonna just kind of scrape down through, and there's just thicker parts at the bottom. And this hasn't strained a lot yet, but once it strains, it kind of creates this like pack on the bottom of the yogurt, and then it won't strain any further. So you kind of have to be a little bit diligent at flipping these parts. And as I'm doing this, I can hear it straining through into the pot below, because you want the thick parts to come to the top so that these looser parts will go down and start to strain their liquid out. It's gonna be kind of like a paste that you're gonna pull to the top. It's kind of like stretching and folding your sourdough. You're just gonna go around and kind of just pull the bottom to the top. Just a quick closer look at what I'm straining with. So this is just a wire mesh strainer that fits perfectly over my pot. And then this is cheesecloth, but it is like a silicone cheesecloth. I much prefer this because it's really easy to clean and use over and over. I just got this in a cheese kit, so you could probably go to like a cheese making site and they would likely have it. And then I just put it over like that, and I pour the yogurt into it, and then that kind of gives it like a double strain. And then when I'm finished, if I want to make it thicker, all I have to do is gather the edges, pinch the top, and hang it up so that it can strain hanging up on something. So another question that people want to know when we make homemade yogurt is, how do you flavor it? So do you just put this plain yogurt in the fridge and do nothing with it? And so yes, we usually do, because everybody likes a different flavor. But if you want, you can also do batches of different flavors. So this is where your kind of freeze-dried powders come in handy. So strawberry powder, when we want to make a strawberry yogurt, we will also add in like chunks of strawberries if they're in season. And if you really want to make it sweeter, you can also put some strawberry jam in it. But this makes like a really nice strawberry yogurt. You can add this in nice and easy. And then for blueberry yogurt, same thing. We have our blueberry powder, and you can add the blueberry powder in super easy as well. As far as sweeteners go, so like I said, you can add some jam to the strawberry one if you want, or I personally like to just add a little bit of honey and a bit of vanilla, and that kind of just draws the flavors out. And you can even put a pinch of salt in there, like a pinch of salt, and that helps draw those flavors out as well. So those are not necessary, but you can certainly do that. The other one that we like to do is like a vanilla bean. So if you have actual vanilla bean pods, you can scrape those into your yogurt and you can add a little bit of honey, and then you have vanilla yogurt. So it's very easy to have all the different flavors that you love to have, and it stores super well in your fridge for quite a while. Like I said, I usually just strain it down and then I put it in the fridge, and I sort of let the kids dress it up however they want to. I like mine plain. I like adding just a little bit of granola or some nuts and raisins, but our kids really like to add in the powders to kind of give them some extra flavors. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are looking to flavor your yogurt. You can certainly flavor it with whatever flavors you want. There's no need to really ever buy it from the store. You can make it all at home, super easy and way cheaper, and obviously way more volume of it for what you're going to pay for like a gallon of milk at the store. All right, so this has been several hours sitting, and we have the whole batch in here, so you can see it's decreased to about half. And when I pull the bottom up, it's really, really thick. So I would usually be done at this point, but you can strain it down further. So we're probably going to take this off and put it in our container. We tried it out with some strawberry powder and some honey, and it makes beautiful yogurt. So anything that I'm going to use this for, so whether it's sour cream or if I'm baking with it or if we want to eat it in the morning, this is a great consistency for that. So again, another thing you can do is you can take the edges. If you wanted it to be thicker, you can take these edges and you can tie them up and you can hang it, and you'll see it starting to bead out, and it will continue to strain out. It will go down to even half of this, even further, and it will get really, 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 really thick, and you can get it down to like a cheese-like consistency if you wanted to. But you'll see there's lots of whey in there. We've taken a lot of the liquid out of this, and it's probably ready to go into a container and go into the fridge. Because remember, when we put it in the fridge, it's gonna thicken up again. So this is a really nice thick consistency, but it's gonna get even thicker once it goes into the fridge, and it's really smooth and really nice. So this has spent some time in the fridge, and I'm just gonna show you the consistency. So you can see it's quite a bit thicker than it was. And this is exactly how we love ours. And even if you've put it in the fridge, you can always take it out and put it back through the strainer again if you think that you need a little bit thicker. Every time you put it and just leave it with the strainer, but you can see like this is quite thick, sticking to the spoon. But every time you put it through the strainer, it's going to take the whey out of it and leave you with a thicker consistency. So we love it like this. We use it as sour cream. We use it in recipes. We use it for dips, and in the morning as our yogurt. So there you have it, homemade yogurt. You never have to buy it at the grocery store ever again.